This happened a few weeks ago. I was 34, recently out of a job, and looking for a fresh start in a new apartment. It wasn't much, just a run-down building at the end of a narrow street. I thought it would be quiet. The peeling paint and flickering porch lights felt like a weary welcome. I remember thinking it was good to have anonymity again. I never stopped thinking about what I left behind. On my first night there, I noticed an uneasy silence. It felt heavier than the usual quiet I sought. Then, from above, there was a thud. Just one. I shrugged it off, rolled onto my side, and pulled the blanket tight. But then I felt it, a chill that rattled me awake. I wasn't sure if it was the draft from the old windows or something else. The next day, the thuds returned. I sat still in my living room, coffee in hand, listening. The building felt alive, whispering with every noise. Footsteps, a door opening and closing. I tried to ignore it, but my nerves tightened, creeping up my spine. I thought I caught glimpses of shadows moving through the corner of my eye, but maybe I was imagining things. I spoke to a couple of neighbors. Their eyes seemed distant, faces blurring together. It bothered me. They left at odd times, like they were part of a ritual I wasn't invited to. I was out of my depth, unsure of what was happening around me. Sometimes I wondered if talking to them would help or just drag me into whatever oddities lay beneath the surface. I felt like a ghost in my own life. Night after night, I heard more noises, an almost rhythmic pattern. Sometimes it sounded like a hammer striking wood, but I could never pinpoint where it was coming from. I thought about knocking on a neighbor's door but hesitated. What if I drew attention to myself? Each day I felt more trapped. Then one evening the sounds escalated. I lay in bed, shadows dancing on my walls, and heard a deep, urgent voice. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded important. Maybe there were other people in the building, people I hadn't met. My heart raced. I thought I'd step out and ask someone if they heard it too, but I stayed frozen in my bed. Finally, I decided to look outside my window. It was dark, but the moon cast a sliver of light. As I peered through the glass, I saw one of my neighbors standing there staring up at me. He didn't blink. He didn't move. Just stared like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Then he asked, "Why are you with us?" I turned around. Nobody was there. I felt my breath catch in my throat. It was like the air froze around me. I quickly closed the curtain, my heart racing. I knew I needed to leave, but where would I go? The next day, the manager said the building was for sale. No one lived there anymore. I looked back at my apartment. I was alone. A chill crept over me. I felt the walls closing in, like they were watching me. Outside, the neighbors had vanished too. I stood there feeling lost. I'd sold my faith to start anew, but I felt trapped by what I couldn't see. And now, I was terrified I might be next. I spent the next day pacing around the apartment, my thoughts spiraling. Not only was I alone, but now I felt like a target. The strange noises in the night felt closer, more urgent. I decided I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed answers. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out into the hallway. The air was thick with unease, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like a warning. As I made my way toward the stairs, I stopped in front of one neighbor's door, the one I hadn't visited yet. A faint light flickered beneath the door, and I hesitated. What was I even going to say? Just then, a muffled voice came from inside. It was a woman, but her words were drowned out by what sounded like music. It was haunting and beautiful, but it unnerved me. I knocked softly, feeling an odd mix of trepidation and hope. No answer. I knocked again, more forcefully. The door creaked open slightly, revealing a darkened entryway. "Hello?" I called out, but the music faded. A sense of dread rushed over me. Suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, heart pounding. It was the same neighbor from the night before, the man who had asked why I was with them. He stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a tight voice. "Why? What's going on?" I managed to ask, confused and desperate. "It's not safe," he replied, and stared down the hallway as if expecting something to come rushing toward us. "You need to leave this place." Before I could respond, he moved past me quickly and disappeared down the stairs. I stood there, shocked, and feeling the looming threat of whatever he feared. Should I follow him? I didn't want to be left alone, but part of me was terrified of what deeper truths he might unravel. I took a hesitant step back toward the neighbor's door. The music had returned, now louder and more insistent. My curiosity pulled me in. I felt drawn to it, but also repelled by the unease settling in my gut. With a quick decision, I pushed the door open a crack and peered inside. The room was dim, cluttered with old furniture and boxes, and there in the center was a small group of people. They were swaying gently, the music coming from an old record player. Their faces were obscured, and they were lost in their own world, paying no attention to me. That's when I saw it, a shard of broken glass glimmering under the light. It looked like it had been recently dropped. My heart dropped as I realized it came from a nearby mirror, shattered on the floor. The realization hit me that I wasn't just seeing a glimpse into someone else's life, I was staring into a reflection of something far more dangerous. Before I could pull away, I caught their attention. One of them turned toward me with a blank, vacant stare. "Stay with us," they said, their voice ethereal, as if they were not entirely of this world. I felt the chill grip me again, that same sensation that had followed me since I moved in. I stumbled backward, away from the door. Then everything went dark. The lights in the hallway flickered violently. And I realized I wasn't alone anymore. Someone was in the building, and they were coming for me. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, swallowing the flickering lights. Panic surged through me. I stumbled backward, my hands searching for something, anything, to hold on to. The sound of low whispers floated through the air, growing louder, surrounding me. My heart raced. It was as if the very walls of the building were closing in, breathing down my neck. I spun around, desperate to find a way out, but the hallway seemed longer, stretching endlessly in both directions. The door to the neighbor's apartment was now fully closed, and the haunting music had stopped. In its place was an eerie silence that echoed in my ears. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. I took a deep breath. Fighting the urge to run, I focused on my next move. The man from before had warned me. Maybe he had left to find help. Maybe I needed to follow him. But was he a part of whatever danger lurked in this building? Suddenly, there was a loud bang from behind me. I whirled around and my heart jumped into my throat. The door to the apartment I had just seen cracked open. A sliver of light broke through the darkness, revealing shadows moving inside. I hesitated. Should I call out? Before I could decide, a figure stepped into the light. It was the woman I had heard earlier, her eyes wide and wild. "You shouldn't be here," she shouted, her voice trembling. "Why? What's going on?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What happened to the man?" "Leave! You need to get out of this building!" She lunged toward me, grabbing my arm with a fierce grip. Her touch felt cold, as if the warmth of humanity had left her. My mind raced. I could feel something shifting in the air, a pulse of energy that seemed angry. As if the building was alive, protesting my presence. "Please tell me what's happening," I pleaded, heart pounding against my ribs. "Don't you understand?" She looked over her shoulder, as if sensing something. "They're watching. They see everything." "Who?" I was trembling now, and my voice quivered. "The ones who took him," she whispered, her breath coming in quick gasps. "He was one of the lucky ones. He knows the way out. But you—" Her eyes widened in horror. "You're next." The floorboards creaked ominously beneath us. I shoved her hand away and took several steps back, staring into her eyes, searching for any sign of hope. But all I saw was fear, raw and real. Then I heard it. A soft sound, like breathing, but not human. It echoed from deep inside the apartment behind her. My stomach dropped. A shadow flickered in the corner of my vision. Someone, or something, was lurking. I had to make a choice. I could make a run for the stairs or confront whatever horror was hidden just beyond that threshold. Before I knew it, I spun back toward the stairs, propelled by instinct. I bolted down the dim corridor, ready to escape, but the oppressive unease followed me. I didn't know what was at my back, but I could feel the weight of its presence. As I reached the staircase, I looked over my shoulder one last time. The apartment door stood ajar, and a figure stepped into the hallway, a darkness against the dim light. I dashed down the stairs. I had to get out. Whatever was in this building, it wasn't finished with me yet. I raced down the staircase, my feet pounding against the worn steps. The dim light flickered above, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. My breath came in sharp gasps, and I could feel the cold grip of fear tightening around my throat. I had to escape. Somewhere behind me, I could sense the presence growing closer. When I reached the ground floor, I pushed through the door and stumbled into the lobby. The chill in the air hit me like a slap. Dark shapes seemed to hover in the corners, watching, waiting. I could feel the sensation creeping up my spine again. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, pressing in on me. There were two exits. The front door, where I could see the street outside, and a hallway leading to the back of the building. The hallway was shrouded in darkness, but the thought of being trapped in that ill-lit corridor sent a wave of panic through me. I chose the front door. I sprinted toward it, fumbling with the handle as I threw it open. The cool night air rushed over my face, but I didn't stop to breathe. I dashed outside, glancing back only once. Just as the door swung shut behind me, I saw the figure from the apartment, standing in the doorway, a silhouette carved from night itself. The woman's terrified expression was frozen in my mind. Why hadn't she followed me? I stumbled onto the street, gasping for air, trying to calm my racing heart. My instinct screamed at me to run, to find safety. I briefly scanned the streets, looking for anyone who could help. But there was no one around, just the eerie hum of the city at night. Then I noticed something glimmering in the gutter. Curiosity pulling at me, I crouched down. It was a small key, rusty but ornate, the kind that made you wonder what door it might unlock. A shudder passed through me. Why was it here? I pocketed the key. Maybe it was a clue, something leading me to answers about the woman, the man, and whatever dark secrets the building held. But the feeling of dread crept back in. If the woman was right, I was being watched. Was it too late for me to turn back? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the building. I flinched and looked back. The front door had swung open, but no one stepped out. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to find out what happened next. I took off again, my heart pounding with every step. I turned the corner, my mind racing with questions. Why had the woman warned me? Who was watching? My thoughts spiraled, and a new question emerged. Could the key really lead me to safety? Ahead of me, I spotted an alleyway that seemed to promise more darkness and uncertainty. I hesitated. But before I could dwell on my fears, a chilling realization struck me. I wasn't alone. Someone was behind me. I bolted down the alley, adrenaline pounding through my veins. The sounds of my shoes hitting the pavement echoed like a countdown in my head. I didn't dare look back. I could feel someone close, moving swiftly and purposefully. Each breath felt like blades of ice slicing through my lungs. As I rounded a sharp corner, the alley widened into a small courtyard. Dim light flickered from a nearby street lamp. I pressed my back against the rough brick wall, straining to listen. The footsteps were louder now, a steady rhythm that sent shivers down my spine. I risked a glance over my shoulder. There he was, tall and shadowy, just a silhouette illuminated by the faint glow. I couldn't make out his features, but I knew that look. It was the same one I had seen in the doorway of the apartment building, eyes narrowed and fixated on something just out of reach. Was he searching for me or waiting for me to make a mistake? My heart raced as I scanned the courtyard. An old, rusty dumpster lurked in one corner, and to my right was a set of stairs leading to what appeared to be an abandoned office. I was out of options. If I stayed here, he would find me. Without thinking, I dove toward the stairs, hoping to find refuge inside. The door creaked open and I slipped in, wincing at the noise. The interior was a forgotten place, littered with broken glass and dust. I could hear the muffled sounds of the street outside, but the footsteps had stopped. Had he followed me in? I couldn't tell. I crouched behind a desk, scanning the room. Shadows loomed everywhere, and I could feel my skin creep with the chill of the unknown. That's when I spotted something on the floor. A faint glimmer caught my eye. I moved closer, crawling on my hands and knees. It was a small silver locket, slightly tarnished but still intact. I hesitated before picking it up. Was it a sign? A clue? I flipped it open and my breath hitched. Inside was a faded picture of a woman I didn't recognize. Below her photo, there was an inscription. "Always yours, Marie." Questions flooded my mind. Was this woman connected to the key, or the horrors unfolding just moments ago? Before I could think too deeply, the distant sound of footsteps reached my ears again. They were coming closer. My pulse quickened. I stashed the locket in my pocket and tried to control my breathing. The door creaked again. I pressed myself against the wall, my body tensing as I braced for whatever was about to happen. I didn't just want to survive. I needed answers. Then I remembered the key in my pocket. Maybe it wasn't just a random find. Could it open this very door or another? Suddenly, the door swung open. My heart froze as a shadow emerged, blocking the light from the hallway. It wasn't just anyone. It was him. The figure I'd seen earlier, now fully revealed in the flickering light. "Looking for something?" he said, a twisted smile stretching across his face. And in that moment, I knew I was out of time. I barely registered his words before I sprang into action. There was no time to freeze in fear. I darted to the side, aiming for the nearest window. The cold night air beckoned like a siren. Just as his footfalls echoed across the floor, I reached the glass, but it was stuck. My pulse thundered in my ears as I fought with it, pushing and pulling until it finally creaked open. "Stop!" he yelled, his voice cutting through the dim room. My heart sank. I glanced over my shoulder and saw him moving closer, long strides eating up the space between us. There was no way I could make it out in time. I turned back to the window, my fingers trembling. I forced my body through the opening just as he lunged at me. I managed to pull myself outside, landing hard on the damp ground below. The impact rattled my bones, but I pushed through the pain. I ran down the narrow alley, my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. I could hear him shouting behind me, but I didn't dare look back. I rounded another corner and shot down the next street, desperate to put distance between us. I could feel panic rising in my chest. I had to find somewhere to hide, somewhere safe. My eyes darted around, searching for a way out. I spotted an open doorway ahead, a small convenience store. I dashed inside, barely registering the surprised expression of the clerk as I stumbled through the aisles. Once inside, I pressed myself against a shelf of snacks, trying to blend in with the shadows. My heart raced, my fingers still brushing against the cool metal of the locket in my pocket. I hadn't even taken a moment to analyze what it meant for me. Problems upon problems spun around in my mind, each more confusing than the last. "Are you all right?" a voice asked. I turned to see the clerk looking at me with concern. "I'm fine," I managed to say, though I knew I didn't sound convincing. "Just need to catch my breath." He frowned, scanning the entrance. You look like you just ran from a nightmare. I forced a laugh, though it was hollow. You have no idea. Just then, the bell jingled above the door. I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. I couldn't just stand here. I needed to know if it was him. I edged toward the front, peeking around the corner. The figure stepped inside. It was him, the man with the twisted smile, his eyes scanning the store like a predator searching for its prey. My stomach dropped. He didn't see me yet, but it was only a matter of time. I quickly ducked behind a stand, heart racing as I tried to think. I needed to get out. I just had to be smart about it. But before I could move, the clerk approached him. "Can I help you with something, sir?" "Yeah," the man replied, casually glancing around. "Just looking for someone. You seen a girl run in here?" The clerk shrugged, his expression now wary. I backed away slowly, inching toward the rear exit. The door creaked open behind me. I needed a plan, a way to escape the web tightening around me. What did the key and the locket mean? Would they offer the answers I was searching for, or would they only drag me deeper into chaos? Then I noticed something on the floor, a crumpled piece of paper partially hidden behind a shelf. I reached down to grab it, and as I read the message, my breath caught in my throat. It was an address, along with a name I recognized from a past I couldn't afford to forget. I stood frozen, new questions colliding in my mind. Whoever that man was, he was just the beginning. I had to escape, and fast, before he found me. I stood in the shadows of the store, the crumpled paper still clutched in my hand. My heart raced as the name on the page rattled me. Vincent. I hadn't heard that name in years, not since everything fell apart. This had to be a mistake, a cruel twist of fate. I had buried that part of my life deep, and now it was clawing its way back into my reality. I couldn't stay here. The man was still searching. I needed to get out and figure this out. I glanced back at the checkout counter. The clerk was still engaged with the man, but I could see that it wouldn't be long before his patience wore thin. I slipped toward the back door, trying to remain quiet, my mind racing with possibilities. Could Vincent help me now? Would he even want to? The thought sent another wave of panic through me. I stepped outside into the dark alley, breathless. It felt chilly against my skin, but I couldn't let that distract me. The streetlights flickered like watchful eyes as I navigated the narrow space between buildings. Then I heard it, the sharp sound of footsteps behind me. I picked up my pace, glancing over my shoulder, but the shadows kept the pursuer hidden. I needed to find a way out of this maze. The streets twisted like a tangled web, and I had no idea where I was going. In the distance, I spotted a small cafe with a glowing neon sign. I dashed toward it, pushing the door open just in time to hear the faint jingle of the bell. I quickly scanned the room, looking for a good spot to hide, but the cafe was nearly empty, save for a few patrons and a barista wiping down the counter. "Are you all right?" a voice called as I stumbled to the back. It was a young woman with dark hair, concern etched on her face. I just need a moment," I managed to say, breathless. She raised an eyebrow but nodded, her gaze lingering on the door. "You look like you just ran from something." I should have asked for help, but I couldn't trust anyone, not even her. My world had turned upside down and I couldn't afford to let anyone in. Crouching down behind a table, I pulled out the crumpled paper again, my thoughts racing. There had to be more to Vincent's address. Maybe he knew who was after me. Maybe he was the key to understanding this mess. Just as I studied the paper, the cafe door swung open. My heart plummeted. I held my breath, praying it wouldn't be him. But when I peeked through the gap, dread filled me. It was the man with the twisted smile, scanning the room with intensity. I ducked down, making myself as small as possible. "Have you seen her?" he asked the barista, his voice low but commanding. "No, sir," she replied, glancing nervously around the room. I haven't seen anyone like that tonight. I swallowed hard. I had to get out. With adrenaline pulsing through my veins, I waited for the right moment. I needed to move, to make a choice that could either save me or land me right in his hands. There wasn't much time left. As he stepped further into the cafe, I bolted toward the kitchen door at the back, trying to stay silent. That's when I realized I was at a crossroads. I could either confront my past or let it take me further into danger, and that was when the lights flickered and went dark. My heart raced as panic surged. I was trapped, and now all I could hear was the echo of footsteps closing in. The darkness enveloped me like a thick fog, but I couldn't stand still. I felt the pulse of fear kicking in again, urging me to move. I groped my way around the kitchen, my hands stumbling over equipment and bags of flour. I had no idea where the back door was, but I had to find it. I took a breath to steady my racing mind. My eyes strained to adjust to the shadows, but I couldn't hear anything over the pounding of my heart. Just when I thought I might have a moment to regroup, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed closer, a heavy thud against the tiled floor making me freeze. I ducked behind a stack of crates, my breath caught in my throat. The man's silhouette emerged briefly through the kitchen entryway, a dark figure scanning the room with a hunger that made me shiver. My instincts told me he was not just looking for me, he was hunting me. I had to act fast. I slid to the side, searching for another escape. I spotted a narrow window at the far end of the kitchen. It might be my only chance. Gritting my teeth, I crept carefully along the edge, wincing at every creak of the floor beneath me. Just as I reached the window, the lights flickered back to life. I cursed under my breath. Now, he would see me if I didn't hurry. I pushed up on the window, gasping as the rusty hinges protested in a sharp squeal. The chill night air rushed in, and I quickly looked back toward the door. If he didn't hear that, I might still have a chance. "Where are you?" he called out, his voice dripping with menace, and my heart dropped. I had seconds. With one last heave, I pushed myself through the window, scraping my arm on the rough edges as I fell onto the cold pavement outside. I landed hard but scrambled up to my feet, ignoring the pain shooting through me. I glanced back before darting from the cafe. The street was dimly lit and eerily quiet, but I couldn't stop. I tore down the alley, desperate to create distance. The scuttle of my feet echoed back to me, a metronome of fear as I raced forward. I had no idea where I was going, just away from that man. Then I remembered the crumpled paper. It was still in my pocket. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out and glanced at the address. It was a few blocks away. My heart raced at the thought of finding Vincent. Maybe he could help me understand what was happening. As I turned the corner, I saw a figure standing under a flickering streetlight. Panic shot through me. I was exhausted, but I had to keep moving. Just as I approached, the figure turned and my blood ran cold. It wasn't the friend I had hoped for. It was another man, lurking in the shadows, watching me with the same intent. That's when I realized I wasn't just running from one man. I was being hunted, with no one to trust and no way to hide. I squared my shoulders, ready to fight, but instinct screamed at me to flee. There was no time left. A new threat loomed, and I had to make a choice. I sprinted back the way I came, adrenaline surging through my veins. The shadows stretched and loomed, but I couldn't stop to think. With each turn, I searched for a place to hide. The figure under the light moved to follow me, the heavy footfalls trailing behind. Instinct screamed at me to keep running. I spotted an open doorway leading into an alley. I darted inside, my heart pounding louder than my feet against the pavement. I pressed myself against the cool brick wall, trying to catch my breath. The alley smelled of garbage and dampness, but I welcomed the stench over the chase. I could hear the man's footsteps drawing near, and I held my breath. "Come out, come out." His voice taunted, deep and sinister. "You can't hide forever." I clenched my fists, fear bubbling and twisting in my gut. I needed to keep moving, but I had to wait for the right moment. I peered around the edge of the doorway, straining to see where he was. He passed the entrance, scanning the alley with methodical precision. My mind raced as I recalled Vincent. If I could just make it to him, he'd know what to do. But first, I had to get away from this man. I edged along the wall, hoping to slip into another alley that ran parallel. I glanced back and saw him turn, exposing his profile in the flickering glow from the streetlight. His eyes searched for me, hungry and predatory. I felt a surge of panic. I pushed off the wall, running for my life. I dashed through the darkness, trusting my instincts to guide me. I took a right, then a left, never looking back. The streets were foreign, but I needed the distance. Just as I thought I might put enough space between us, I stumbled on uneven ground and fell, scraping my knees. Pain jolted through me, but I forced myself to stand. I could hear him in the distance, frustration bleeding into his voice. "Stop! You can't escape!" I fought against the weariness creeping in, every muscle screaming for mercy. I ducked into another narrow passageway, hoping to blend into the shadows. I pressed my back against the wall, closing my eyes and trying to focus. I could hear the chase continue, the man's footsteps growing quieter. Then came the chilling realization that he wasn't alone. More footsteps echoed behind him, multiple figures converging. Panic clutched at my throat as I strained to listen to their whispers. "Did you see her?" one voice asked. "Keep looking," another one said. I felt like a hunted animal, cornered with no way out. I had to think, had to find Vincent. I pulled out my phone, but there was no signal. My fingers shook as I realized I needed to move again, to find safety before it was too late. In that moment, a light flickered on further down the passage. It was the entrance to a different street, a spark of hope ignited in me. I took a deep breath, ready to make a run for it. Then everything went dark. The sudden absence of light made my heart race. I closed my eyes for a split second, trying to gather my thoughts. The murmurs faded, but I could feel a presence creeping back. I wasn't just running anymore. I was being trapped, and the walls were closing in around me. I stumbled in the darkness, disoriented. My heart thudded against my chest, echoing in the silence that enveloped me. I pressed my back against a wall, trying to steady my panicked thoughts. Shadows danced in the corners of my mind as I remembered the urgency of the chase. Someone was hunting me. Just as I thought I could breathe again, the dim light flickered back on, casting long, eerie shadows in the narrow passageway. I peered around, half expecting to see the man with the twisted smile or his cohorts emerging from the darkness. But the air felt strangely still, heavy with an unseen tension. The alleyway ahead was empty, but I could still hear the distant murmur of voices. They felt like a haunting song, echoing the words I didn't want to hear. I knew I had to make a choice, either keep running and risk being caught, or find a way to confront the shadows of my past. As I gathered my resolve, I clutched the crumpled paper in my hand, feeling the rough edges press against my palm. With a surge of determination, I turned toward the street where Vincent's address led. Maybe he had answers, or maybe I simply needed to understand why I had found myself woven into this tapestry of danger. The streetlights flickered inconsistently, and I hurried forward, glancing over my shoulder. I half expected to see my pursuers at any moment, but it didn't appear anyone was following. The stillness was unnerving, as if the world held its breath. When I reached Vincent's address, I stood in front of a battered old door. Taking a deep breath, I rapped my knuckles against it. No response. I knocked harder. Still nothing. I leaned into the door, testing the handle, and to my surprise, it creaked open. Stepping inside, I found myself in a dimly lit room filled with the smell of dust and neglect, the air heavy with a kind of melancholy. I moved cautiously, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, echoing my unease. "Vincent," I called out softly, hoping to break the silence. "It's me." A shadowy figure appeared at the back of the room, and my pulse quickened. "Who's there?" he asked, his voice raspy and yet familiar. "It's me, Alex. I need help," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why are you here?" Vincent's tone shifted slightly, concern creeping in. "You shouldn't have come back." I glanced back toward the door, paranoia dancing in my mind. I was being hunted. I don't know what's happening. I don't understand. He stepped closer, the weakened light revealing his gaunt features. "You've attracted their attention, haven't you?" "The shadows?" I nodded, my heart sinking. "Who are they?" Vincent hesitated, searching my eyes, and I realized the weight of his knowledge. "They are drawn to fear, to suffering. It's how they thrive." What he said made me shudder. "And what about you? How do I escape this?" He looked down, a deep sigh escaping his lips. "There's no easy way out. They feed on despair. The more you fight them, the more they linger." I felt the cold grip of dread surging through me, pushing me into despair. My hands trembled as I gripped the locket and key in my pocket. But I can't be trapped by this darkness forever. He moved closer, placing a hand on my shoulder, a tremor in his touch. "You must confront them. They reflect what you hide within. You either face them or surrender to the shadows." I turned toward the door, the memories of my days in that building flooding back. All the moments of terror and unease, it all intertwined with my past, the mistakes I had made. "Will I be able to leave?" "That depends on what you choose to reveal," he said softly. "Face them, or let them consume you." I clenched my fists, determination boiling beneath my skin. "Then I'll face them. I refuse to let them define me." He nodded solemnly, and with his eyes, he told me what his words could not. There was a glimmer of hope, but it dripped with uncertainty. As I stepped back toward the door, a chilling draft swept through the room, and I could feel the whispers of my pursuers creeping in. I had made my decision. I thrust the door open and stepped back out into the world, a world that felt both familiar and foreign. The street was alive with a stillness that pricked at my skin. Looking around, I spotted shadows pooling closer, shapes blending into the surroundings. I took a breath, gathering my courage. A short moment of clarity before stepping into the fray again. I recalled the key and the locket, my anchors in this chaos, as I prepared to confront whatever awaited me. Yet even as I steeled my nerves, I couldn't shake the lingering questions. Had I truly escaped the danger? The feeling of being watched hadn't faded, and the fear whispered at the edges of my mind. I could only hope that by stepping forward, I might find the light hidden within my darkness. But there would be no guarantees. Just the uncertainty of a journey that felt endless, and only the shadows would know what awaited me next.